The Bond film Never Say Never Again came out in 1983. This follows a much older Sean Connery James Bond as he's going through this globe-trotting adventure to stop these nuclear bombs from launching. And yeah, so here in this movie, he is a little bit older because this is like 20 years after he started to play Bond, so he really can't do a lot of things he did in like the 60s, but he still does do a lot. For example, there's a really cool motorcycle chase, and that's fun, but for the most part, I definitely do think this is the weakest of probably the Sean Connery Bond films, because not only can he not do a whole lot, I don't think the movie is like super good. I do think it has a lot of good moments, but I don't necessarily think it saves the movie from some of the other things. So, for example, so we start off this movie with an older James Bond going on this adventure in this area. It's like midway through the adventure, he shoots the guys and everything. That's cool. Like, the people at the organization are like, hey, we're starting to retire the 007s now, so we're just going to put you in a geriatric facility. Like, he doesn't really belong there. But here, this is still where we start the adventure, because he later figures out that there's this guy, right? And he's getting a new prosthetic eye. But this eye is the same type of eye that the president has. And so with this like eye, that's the same eye that the president has pretty much, it matches it, that he can basically just get into any of the things that the president can get into that use eyes. I don't know, it's very specific on the eyes, man, but however, James Bond figures this out and he's like, no, I do not belong in this geriatric facility. I am really not that old. So then he just, leaves without any warning, really. He doesn't even tell me, he just kind of, leaves. And we do get to see a little bit of this Bond in his suit. He does have a very nice white suit, but we don't get a Bond car in this movie. We just get him, driving in some scenes in a car, not necessarily the Bond vehicle, because it's like in a different car pretty much every single time. Still, though, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's just always fun addition to have a Bond car, because we usually get a different one. For example, the one in Goldfinger was cool. That was the first one. The one in, later in, other movies, whatever. That's just a little bit of a minus for this movie, I think. So we eventually figure out that there's this guy, right, and he wants to launch these nuclear bombs. And, this Bond villain, I think, is probably one of the weakest Bond villains we've gotten in, especially the Sean Connery ones, and just the Bond films as a whole. Because, it's a good it's an okay enough villain, but it doesn't necessarily add anything to the movie. It doesn't feel like, there's this one part where they're sitting down and they're playing this, arcade game, right? But it's, a torture device at the same time. Could be cool, but it really isn't. Honestly, I don't get why we needed this movie. Because I get why people wanted it. It's for nostalgia of seeing Sean Connery back as Bond, right? But we don't need to see him. But if we're going to bring him back, we don't need to see him play an arcade game. There was a lot more interesting ways to execute that concept, but it doesn't really work. But still, whatever. Eventually they do launch the villain does launch the nuclear bombs, and here is where James Bond has to stop it. First by annihilating the main villain and his little minions. And also there's this motorcycle chase where he's running down all these tight places, and there's a big motorcycle chase, two motorcycles. And eventually they both crash in this one area, and she's about to kill him. But then he uses a pen to blow her up. And it's a really cool sequence. And Sean Connery still does look the part. He still looks like Bond. There's a little bit of gray hairs, but yeah, it really isn't. That really doesn't take away much of anything from the movie. Still, though, we underwater for quite a bit to get rid of these bombs and stuff. And there's this thing where it's he's inside this thing, and these contraptions to take out the bombs. Whatever. It doesn't. The bombs really are just sidelined towards the end because they need to have something for them to do in this movie. So yeah. I am very mixed on this Bond movie, because on the one hand, I get why this was made. On the other hand, I really don't. But on the third hand, going back to the first hand or whatever, I just don't really care for this movie. If I'm gonna watch a Sean Connery Bond film, I'm probably gonna skip this one. Unless I'm feeling in a specific mood towards the Sean Connery Bond that day, and it's like, you know what? I want to watch Never Say Never Again. I don't know why I want to watch it again, but you know what? I want to watch it again. And yeah, so like, I do like, at least in this one, it doesn't feel like they're just doing it because, like, they were like, oh, we have to bring him back, because we're just paying him a bunch of money. I mean, they do pay him a bunch of money, but, like, you get what I'm saying. Like, he actually wanted to come back. Unlike other Bond films where he's just like, he comes back for the paycheck. But yeah, I do enjoy it. This one's okay. I mean, it's fine. But yeah, I could be wrong. I would probably give this like a 5.5 out of 10. If you guys enjoyed this video or any of my other content, please consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.